Kiss My Chaos, taking stories of trauma into triumph while living life in the middle and everything in between. All views are expressed solely of the host, guests, and for entertainment purposes only. You don't like it? Well, you can kiss our chaos. Here are your hosts, Abigail Dark and DT Hudson.
Welcome back to the Kiss My Chaos podcast, and I have somebody sitting to my right here with her bottom lip hanging way, way out, because guess what? Halloween's over.
I'm sad.
I was surprised that when your husband came out to my house the other day, he told me you guys had your yard all put away.
I know, people were like, oh, we're going to come by this weekend. And I'm like, no, it's gone. It goes down the next day before noon. It is done. Because I can't handle it. I'm like, stuff, this year was the year of like stuff. I couldn't walk in my basement. There were like werewolves and zombies and like body parts laying everywhere, from dragging shit outside. And I'm like, you know what? This year is the year of, we're going to organize everything. And so my husband, much to his dismay, he is the organizing person. I am not. I am, me, I'm very much like ADHD. I start something, I don't finish it, and now there's a giant freaking mess where I just started that. That's me. And so I started it, and he had the whole week off to like finish my mess. So he took down most of the stuff. We got it loaded and put away, and now I'm like super happy because I have another half of a basement that I can buy more things for.
Okay, that's how this works. That's how, and I can just see him shaking his head now. And just so you know, I got to do something exciting this morning. As our guest walked in, I was in the bathroom on the floor underneath her cabinet trying to figure out how our countertop was fastened, which we solved. We are detectives.
We did. And, poor Dan comes over here and I like put him to work. And he's like, we'll work for tea.
And donuts.
And donuts.
And donuts. Yeah, for sure. Man, why don't you introduce our guest? I'm ecstatic. This has been fun already. We should have the sucker recording about 20 minutes ago.
I know, right? Like we had, I always tell everyone like we start having conversations and I'm like, shh, no. Wait for the podcast. That's gold. That's that's top gold. But we have Alexus here with us, and super excited because another musician in the musical world, an artist, traveled on tour with his band and her band. There is, amazing things. I've kind of followed the journey on Facebook and the transition into becoming comfortable in one's body. We all know no matter what we've gone through, a lot of us are uncomfortable in our own skin, right? So
a lot of us are. First of all, happy flipping birthday.
Yeah, and it's her birthday.
Thanks for spending it with us.
Sure, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
No, but you're right. I mean, anybody can look in the mirror and just like, we were just talking about a painting and a picture and how it's yours and is it ever done? There's always something. Nobody's perfect. No one will ever be perfect. And I think we can attest to that. And accepting that is like a huge relief and freedom, but it still creeps back in.
It does. I have a tattoo on my leg of, it's like an angel kind of like queen. And she's looking like she's beautiful, like the eyes could like so pretty, perfect. And then in the mirror is this like demon looking thing, right? Sure. Like how you view yourself versus how others view you is, I think, a problem we have in all kinds of parts of society, how others view us versus how we view ourselves. I mean, we are our own worst critics. We don't need other people doing things to us or, making assumptions about us just by the way we look. I think in a society now, I'm hoping that we can start to outgrow that and we can start to become better. But let's get over to Alexus. And we always like to start off with just saying, tell us a little bit about you.
Fantastic. There's quite a bit at this point. Like, since we'll kind of begin with the ending. That's typically the way that I like to do things. So I had just recently left a band called Shotgun Facelift. I had been the singer for that band for about 7 years. And a whole lot had happened in that time. So the reason I begin there is because since leaving that band, that was about a little over 3 months ago, like 4 months ago, something like that. And unless this will make sense in a second. My mind is a little bit like a lazy Susan. It might sound like I'm off on a rabbit trail, but if you just give it a minute, it connects.
Spin that sucker.
Yeah.
So if you're familiar with addiction or how addiction works, or if you've ever dealt with addiction yourself, you understand that typically, you don't really get a lot of perspective on something until you get distance from something. At least, excuse me. At least drinking is, I've had a lot of vices over the years, but drinking is the most recent one that I point to. Like I quit drinking, it's about 4 years ago, something like that. But I had said at the time that it was just like, man, drinking was just fucking sucked, because it was like, I told everybody, it was like, I'm not happy to be sober. I'm glad I'm sober. I chose to be sober. I'm happy to do that. It was a weird dichotomy where it was like, yes, I'm glad I made this decision because it's healthy and I know it's the right one, but I don't enjoy sobriety, Right. And it wasn't until I had some measure of like a distance on it to where it was like I finally had perspective, that it was like, oh man, it's so great. The ones that the hallmarks that everybody talks about, like the hangovers, not having to deal with those anymore, and not having to deal with, not having to deal with the sweats,
Yeah,
I sweat enough.
Hangover sweats.
Yeah, like
the drools.
I sweat enough as it is, and I don't need any help. My skin takes its job very seriously, and so it wasn't not just the hangovers, but it was more than that. It was like clearer thinking and just finally seeing the other things that I had, filled my time with instead of drinking, as well as, different people that had come in and out of my life, just different levels of perspective that you have on it. And so I had learned when I left Facelift that like everything in my life had been about addiction, not just chemical addiction, but like I was addicted to my creativity. I was addicted to art. I was addicted, because without getting into like the specifics of a lot of dirty laundry, but the way that the band ended, it did not end well. And there's a lot of very, bad, nasty things that happened. And so just skipping past all of that, my point being is like the only reason I would have put up with all of those things is if I had been addicted to it.
Right.
That's the only, and it having perspective, distance on Facelift now, because I was way too close to it to see it at all. Because I was managing, I was promoting, I was doing lyrics, a great chunk of songwriting, logistics.
Bookings, probably.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Bookings, promoting, logistics, all that stuff. Literally all of it I was handling. And so I was too close to it entirely to see that it was like I would never make these decisions or let myself be treated this way if I wasn't addicted to this thing. But it wasn't that Facelift had something that, because there was something I'm still struggling with, is it's like Facelift was like everything to me. It's kind of, it's hard to describe. It was like kind of like my 9 Inch Nails, man. Like when Trent Reznor did 9 Inch Nails, he literally just kind of like sat in an apartment addicted to heroin, hating himself. Like
Right.
that was all it was. And in the weirdest way, that is like precisely what Facelift became, because all of that, so much of that material it wasn't just about gender dysphoria. It was also about addiction. It's also about depression. It's about sexual abuse. There's stuff in there about like broken homes and dysfunctional families, and you know, a lot of. It's appropriately titled. The band is called Shotgun Facelift.
It was your therapy, but yet at the same time,
precisely.
it was not good for your health. I remember when I stopped drinking, writing lyrics and writing music. I've stated many times to my husband, I didn't know how to do it not shit-faced.
Oh, dude, yeah.
I didn't know how to do it not like hating myself and not like going down. I would get loaded just so I could write.
Yeah.
Because that was the only way I knew how to display emotion.
The sad thing, there's some good shit that comes out of that though too.
I wrote some really good stuff.
I'm not gonna lie.
It's called Red River Flood, baby. The latest Shotgun album.
It's true though.
Oh, dude. Okay, like this confession time. Like I had actually like it's embarrassing for me to admit, but like we were on the road. I think we were in Wisconsin, heading to Michigan at the time. I was riding with Matt, and this is not like dirty laundry. This is just like confession, like exactly relevant to like what we were talking about.
Right.
Is I was riding with Matt at the time, and I had. This was not long after I quit drinking, and I had finally told the band because I quit drinking before I told the band about it, and because Damien got married, and that was when everybody found out because I told everybody at the wedding that I wasn't going to be drinking. And that was when I was like, oh, well, why not? And then I told everybody. So it was after that. I don't recall the exact date. But anyway, point being was I had told Matt, we were talking about it. He's like, well, how is it different writing lyrics? Because at the time we weren't out in studio yet for Red River Flood, the new album. We had released Blood Stampede, but we were about midway through writing the new material. And lyrics were coming out. And he was like, are you finding it difficult to like, write the lyrics without the booze or whatever else? And I'm ashamed to fucking admit, like I told him on the road, I'm like, dude, I'm getting really scared. Like, cause it was like song after song after song. Let me see if I'm going to slow down here for just a second. See if I can like say this the way that I want to. Like I was getting scared. They were kicking out song after song after song. And it was better and better and better because like when you get chemistry in a band, especially with musicians that are like into the same music, and if you're all kind of hearing the same heartbeat in the stuff that you're making, it'll just continue to like turn and turn and turn. And that's where people talk about like, the downward spiral. And Trent Reznor, with 9 Inch Nails, like gets at a lot of that, you'll hit this kind of singularity of whatever it is you do. And so they were making better songs and better songs and better songs. And they were handing me better things and better things and better things. And the only option I felt I had was to keep turning to this crazy ass life that I've lived and all of this fucked up shit that I have. Like really fucked up. I've got like loads of fucked up shit. And I'm not the only one. I'm not saying that like I'm so special. I'm just saying that like, we're talking about that. I don't remember if we were recording or not at the time, but it was just like that. Everybody is a universe unto themselves, and you can write whole albums. You can write whole novels on just one person. If you get somebody like me who like I grew up and I didn't have parents in high school, so like I didn't have any force, I didn't have any oversight and I made use of it. So it did a lot of living. So my point is that like, when you have a lot of living, to go through, you get really fucked up. And so the only option I felt I had all the time is it was like they were handing me better stuff and better stuff and better stuff. I'm like, I can't write political. I can't write topical. This is better than that. And then I would kick out a set of lyrics that was really, really good. And it would be about this fucked up thing that happened to me. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like, good. I'm glad I confessed that for the music, right? They'd be like, oh God, that's awesome. So they'd come back with something just gnarlier, right? And they'd write a riff. And I'd be like, oh, and it was good. Like you were talking about, like where it's like it drives creativity, and it kept making great material. And in a weird way, it was like setting me free and killing me at the same time. Because I was not out of the closet at the time. And so they were handing me this music that I was like, it was like pushing me closer inadvertently to like the only card I've got left is like coming out of the closet. And I would plan to die with this secret.
Right.
You know, and I mean, I was in this band called Shotgun Facelift. I was naturally drawn to the band, like the band title. I loved everything about it. All of this stuff was like a natural magnetism of singularity that it just. Point being is I'm off on a tangent, but I understand what you're getting at, where it's like it drives great material, but it like kills you at the same time. And I'm ashamed to admit that the guys were writing material. It was great stuff, and every song that came out, I was like getting scared. That I was like, the only thing I've got left is to just confess all of my secrets to like hold up.
Oh, it's a transition, literally.
Yeah, I was like, if I'm not boozed up, all I'm gonna do, like the tough guy's gone.
But it isn't though. You know what's so funny?
All I've got left is my diary of secrets. You can't.
Well, and that's what music is confession.
Yeah, but I know.
But you did so good.
You're writing reality at that point.
Right, yeah. Now, this has a happy ending-ish, I guess. You know, Facelift is, I wouldn't say Facelift is gone. Facelift is dead. Like, I mean, Facelift didn't so much disband as much as it committed suicide. I mean, that's probably the best way to put the whole thing, is it's like the band committed suicide more than anything else. But anyway, the point being is, like, it has a happy ending because that, all of what I'm talking about now, and that's just kind of like the beginning of the story to what became the album Red River Flood. So that album, that, I know it's real hard to remember because the band, like, completely blew up like 4 months after the fact, but the album did release. It is out. You can go check it out and listen to it and everything else.
I've listened to some of it. I have. And, I just want a full disclaimer here. There's a difference between research and stalking. You know me. So I want to bring up one thing about class and maturity and sobriety. Is I read one of your posts after this happened. Oh, sure. And it was one of the classiest posts wishing people well. Oh. And thanking them for the time, because good, bad, or indifferent memories, their memories, can't do anything about them.
Right.
Well, yeah. And thank you for bringing that up, not for any part of my own ego, but because I have put this sentence in so many emails to promoters and venue people and anybody that I've ever talked to ever that I'm trying to get to listen to something or that I'm selling something to. I say this at conventions when I'm selling books, or if I'm, anytime I'm anywhere, I tell people, I'm like, listen, I've been on both sides of this, both as a fan and as an artist. And I understand that what we're really discussing here, that even in all of society, everything is a discussion on the value of your time. Because even the job you have, they're buying your time from you. Mm-hmm. That's what is happening. If they're giving you a wage, they're buying your time from you. So, and you're saying that for that wage, like, yep, that's an okay price for me to sell my time for that. So if in an exchange of entertainment and art, if I'm not paying you to listen, right? The only thing that's good, you got to just give me the gift of your time, man.
So
and people pay for that shit. So to have people like willingly give it is like, I'd always said, like, thank you so much for the gift of your time, because like I understand what that's worth, man. Because
It's respect.
Nobody understands what your time is worth more than like somebody who gets 20 hours into an audiobook and it just doesn't fucking pan out.
Which is lame. I know, I've done that.
Right. So like, I always dreaded being that kind of an artist or that kind of a person where they were like, dude, I followed through with this book. I gave you that much of my time and you fucking let me down. Yeah.
It is. I have a hard time starting a book unless I've like researched it to death, but
right.
So
you don't want it to suck.
I think with Shotgun Facelift,
I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. I shouldn't speak.
No, I love it.
You're fine. With that being over, what is your next chapter?
Right. And there was a long way around the barn of saying, like, who am I? What have I done? All of that. And I gave that weird, convoluted, wandering answer to basically give a little bit of context to the fact that we were talking a little bit about this before we hit record, that, like, even leading up to this appearance, I was like, you guys have these ladies on this podcast these ladies you have on this podcast seem so accomplished and so fantastic and so inspirational. I'm like, I'm still kind of putting my shit together here. I don't know that I've got enough to really give the presentation. And so that whole, feeling that I'm settled on, what I'm dealing with, because what I'm trying to say is like, I had not even seen any of my own career at all. So when you ask me like, what brings you here? It's like, I know that it's Skeleton Rose Media and that I'm a horror author and that I make melodic death metal and I fell in with a groove metal band called Shotgun Facelift and that we toured the country and around the Midwest and we released 2 out. Like, I know those answers, but it happens in my head in the span of like, I don't know, maybe like 17 seconds, So when you say like, well, give us a little bit about yourself and what's brought you here, it's like, man, I don't even fucking know,
Right.
So it wasn't until leaving Facelift that like having enough distance on it that I was just like, oh, Jesus, like I really had a whole career even before Facelift. That's why it hit me that I was like, Facelift had become an addiction for me because I didn't even see my own career outside of it.
Right.
I was so terrified of leaving that band. That there's lots of stories for another day for a lot of those things. But my point being is it's like there's things that I've never put up with. And the only way, like I said, seeing it now, it's like the same shit I did when I was drinking. It's the same shit I did when I was on heroin. It was the same shit I did when I was addicted to even fucking cigarettes. It's the same shit for any of those addicted. The gym. It happened to me when I was addicted to the gym. I have eating disorders. It happened to me.
You're like the most jacked female.
Yeah.
Like, I am like obsessed with your arms. I'm like actually
if
pissed that I
anybody
can't have that.
Well,
downtown Fargo, if you're going to try and mug somebody, you get your ass whooped here. You're not going to win this one.
I want to be very clear about this. When we talk about like, my arms being jacked and everything else, I do have an advantage that a lot of other females do not have. It's the fact that I naturally produce testosterone. I was naturally born male and have not chemically changed that, and I don't see the point.
Although I have seen lots of females with some pretty jacked arms too.
Right,
like,
exactly. So I was
they worked for that.
Yeah, right, exactly. Don't get the wrong idea, though. I am not putting a ceiling over anybody. I'm just saying that, like, in terms of like talking about me, being jacked or whatever else. It's
so,
like, well,
I'm curious. Tell me about the time and where you got the courage to finally be what you felt you should be as Alexus.
It honestly was when I was going to lose everything. I didn't have a choice. It was either come out or literally lose everything because the relationship that I have with my wife, I'm legally married to Rebecca, and even after coming out, that has not changed. And this gets into like some interesting parts of conversation that I was like, I'm totally down to talk as much about Facelift and books and music and all of that as we absolutely can. But there's a lot of other really interesting places of like, being a trans person that I can hit on, as far as like.
I would love to hear about that.
Yeah. Interesting gender conversations and just things of that nature. Because like I was in Facelift, I had come out and I was still in Facelift for like almost 2 years on tour. And it was... Shit was interesting, man.
I believe it.
I'll tell you that, man.
I do love the courage, though. Like, okay, if you get a chance, our listeners, please go listen to their album because, like, the vocals are like dark and strong and gritty and if you see this like beautiful Alexus on stage and you're like, that came out of that. Like, it's amazing. And if you look at the before picture and then the after, it's amazing.
So for me, it like waned the soul. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's like your vocals like are inside out.
Oh,
it just pours.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Chester. I mean, a lot of people pick up on the Randy Bly vibes from Lamb of God.
Sure.
That one's pretty obvious on the surface, but I'm a huge fan of Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park.
Rest
Absolutely.
in peace, Chester.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had said, he was like, I don't give a shit if it's an ugly take. I don't give a fuck if it's a bad take. If it's the right take, then that's the one that's supposed to be on the track. Like, I don't give a shit if it's perfect. I don't care if it's, and that meets kind of this story that I had heard from Randy one time, where he was having this conversation with his sound tech, Josh Wilbur, at the time. I think this is when they were doing Resolution. And he was in the vocal booth, and he was cutting something, and he'd stop. And then Josh he'd like, there was nothing wrong with that take. I just didn't believe you. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with it. It was perfectly in time. It's got heat on it. It sounds great. Yep, nothing wrong with that. Any other band would take it. There's nothing wrong with it. Between you and me, brother.
Yeah.
I don't believe you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe you when you say that line. And so those two ideas kind of meet in my head, at least when it came to Facelift. Because, like, in the name, like, shotgun facelift, especially when I started confessing, is it was just like the only way this is going to actually work is if you actually do this. Like, and so in the booth, there's a matter, too, of, like, focusing, and I do a lot of, like, mental trance stuff. And this gets in, it's a good way for me to steer back to actually minding my manners and answering you guys' question as far as like what brought me here, what do I do, things like that. And so I started to find through Facelift, especially through Red River Flood. It started a bit on Dakota Blood Stampede, but that's kind of like prelude and would be, more for a different day. But Red River Flood was really where a lot of this stuff started to kind of find itself, because it was the first time that when I had written music or been a part of an ensemble writing music, it was the first time that I waited to write lyrics until after the songs were complete, the song structures. We did everything instrumental. And I made a point. I was like, no doodles, not even any free writing. No, fucking hands off the pencil, just up here. That's it. Just listening and listening and listening. And a large part of what I did a lot of in the band, as far as like the instrumentation, was like orchestration and arrangement. So a lot of it was like demos being sent back and forth, and I'd be like, okay, this needs to go here, this needs to go here. We need this 2 times, 4 times, stuff like that. And so like listening to the flow of the whole song as it's being written, when we did that album, I wouldn't do any lyrics at all until it was like, okay, we all agreed as a band that it was like, yeah, that one's done. We love the way that sounds, just instruments, right? Like, we were like, just the music for that is fucking,
great.
It's fucking gnarly.
What's so cool?
So,
what's so cool about this is you talk about Red River Flood.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people realize, all the crap that was going on. And you brought up Chester.
Yeah.
And the lyrics. If you read the lyrics that was writing, it was like, I'm not going to say foretelling, but it changed.
Right.
And it's interesting. You changed your entire process.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I did. And it changed everything.
Sure it did.
And I promise that when we get to the end of this, it will answer all of the questions.
Oh, we're good. This is great.
that have been
You're
asked, but it changed the whole process of it. And I had just, I'm going to try to be delicate about how I say this here, but it had changed my process to being very, very receptive. And instead of dominating everything that I set my eyes on, including music, creativity, anything I was even handed, because that was always the rule of John, you know what I mean? Like for years, creativity wise, it was like, I was so worried about writer's block, because it was like, never stop, never stop, never stop, never stop, never stop, which is fine. It's definitely a way to work. But like, so through Blood Stampede, when we did Dakota Blood Stampede, everything we were writing, I was constantly like working lyrics at the time, working lyrics. For Red River Flood, it was like, no, don't even fucking do opening drafts don't even fucking work. Title, I did cheat a little bit with titles. I did fuck with titles a little bit.
I think that's a foundation for something. Though.
Yep. And it only came from this place of like, the only time I would start to pull was like, I would listen to these songs and listen to these songs and listen to these songs and just on the shitty demo versions. And I'd be like, all right, what am I feeling? What is this making me feel? And I'd be like, it's making me feel this weird, this emotion over here. And I'd be like, all right, what can I dig into? What do I have in my life that I felt that way? And let's tell that story. Because I'm a huge fan of Johnny Cash and I'm a huge fan of Elvis Presley. Mm-hmm. However you feel about Elvis. But Elvis was a fantastic performer. But I'm a huge fan of Johnny Cash, Sun Records, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, a lot of those like old school Knoxville people. I mention that to say I love the idea of telling a story in a song.
Yeah, for sure.
And then using the interplay of like Cash's thing, everybody loves the idea too of like using a happy song to tell something super dark.
Right.
But with Facelift, most of the music is pretty dark to begin with. We all do our own things. There was not a whole... My brain is locking up right there at that last second. My point is like the music it's not like the music of Facelift was super happy sounding.
Right.
But it still lent itself to being able to tell story in song. And so I just, for the first time in my life, I'd never done music that way. I was like, all right, I'm going to just do this. And without really realizing the fact that I was just confessing in music. So I say all of this is the really funny part where we all kind of giggle and cackle. I say all of this like it's like, oh, this crazy ass process that I found off on my own in some place in the boonies. And everybody's like, yeah, dude, this is just the point of music. You just
hit the nail on the head. You didn't go to a Buddhist temple.
I know. And I say it like it's some crazy fucking, this is all true. Okay?
You said it very artistically. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we make things 1,000 times harder than they usually do.
Dude, right. And I'm like, now everything I just said is completely true. And in all the ways that I could expound or stories I could tell or whatever that illustrate all of this is completely true. But I don't know any other way to say than just like...
Is it your coming out album, basically?
Oh,
would you say that they're the elements of that?
That's about as close to it as you could say. But here's the thing about Facelift and where it gets ugly, and this will probably kind of give you guys a lot of, I'm not scared to discuss any of this stuff.
Right.
My point is, I don't know how much of it is like polite conversation and how much of it is like real dirty laundry. But so I'll put it this way. When we say, it being my coming out album, now, having so much distance from it, yes, I would say that's as close to a coming out album as you're going to get, I guess, in terms of like the timing of it and when it happened, all of that. Okay, this is a little bit like when you graduate college and you don't have to work on homework anymore, but your brain hasn't learned that yet.
Right.
And so you still have that clock in your head. I don't work for Facelift anymore. But I still have this thing in my head that's like, hey, yo, don't say that shit. Because there's band business and there's not band business. I'm like, I'm not in that fucking band anymore.
Right.
Doesn't matter. So, yes, it's my coming out album, but I'm not allowed to say it's my album.
Right. No, we get that.
And no, I need to illustrate this to get, like, to, not that I'm scared of any of this, but to, like, illustrate the point of, like, what it was like in Facelift is like, no. I'm not allowed to say it's my album. No. You're not allowed to say it's your fucking album.
Right.
You understand me. Because it's not, even though I'm doing 7
lyrically in your head, like of how it was. But
right.
I'm actually really curious when...
But there was a huge push-pull with that band all the time. And that was actually a huge part of what happened and why it ended.
I believe that.
Yeah. So, and it was kind of like, the more I leaned into myself, the more difficult everything became because everything was fine, but not fine.
Well, where's your identity at that point?
Right. And so it was fine, but not fine. And,
I'm actually really curious about your after effect, like putting Shotgun Facelift aside. Let's say that's that part of the life, that chapter you know, it's still a part of your life, obviously, and always will be, as if it ended. I'm really curious to know, when you started going through this journey, how does it work? You know, how did your wife receive it?
Oh, yeah. Becca, to start with, is probably, I say this about a lot of people, but it's just because I'm not smart enough to have enough words for everybody. But Becca's probably the sweetest, most wonderful person I've ever met in my entire life. So when it happened, it was because it was... Okay, so I'm going to just be honest here. So the rocky times that her and I have had in our marriage, by and large, have been largely my fault, and they have been at an expense of usually my addictions or my vices.
Sure.
I also have BPD, so it's been a struggle.
I believe that.
with
yeah.
my behavior and self-awareness and healing and therapy and all of that. So,
Right.
Now nobody is so simple. One line stroke of a pen does not delineate a person, so nobody is that simple. But in interest of time and whatnot, I'm comfortable with the telling of it this way. So I keep her busy,
Right. Always guessing.
We'll put it that way. It was like a cute way of saying I drive her flipping nuts, but she's so supportive, so wonderful. And what led to me like coming out and being like, okay, I have to change. So I'm bi gender. So when I tell everybody that everything you know about me, none of it was ever a lie. And what I mean by that is like I exist as equally feminine and masculine versions of myself. I've always been this way. So when people, it's like, well, this is brand new to me. And it's like, well, it's because I've never shown anyone. Mm-hmm. So it's not new to me. It's just new to everybody else. I was in the closet. I was not confused. So like this existed parallel
right.
the entire time. It's just John runs a tight ship about secrets and things.
And I think
John's pretty good at it. You know what I mean?
In that community, so many people
I'm not the only one either.
They put them in categories, but I don't think each person that, has a gender identity or, professes themselves as a certain way, I don't think any of them are the same. I don't think you can categorize. And I think that's the problem with society is we're like, well, are you transgender, bigender? Are you poly? Are you well, who cares? Why are we putting a label? We have to label everything. At this point,
You mean Dave?
Yeah.
What's their fucking name? Did you ask them that?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
and that's the other thing too. Even I felt bad because, I had referred to you as John and I just didn't, in my ignorance, I did not know, okay, well, this is an identity. Alexus is an identity that you...
And to be honest, I let her do it first because I didn't want to start it.
and that's exactly why I wanted you here today, because I wanted you to tell us, we're ignorant.
Sure.
We don't know. And I think that's where a lot of the bias comes in when people are more biased and they don't understand and they don't talk to those people and they don't become a part of that community because they're afraid partially of saying the wrong thing or not knowing. Right. I have a niece that has transitioned into a male. Sure. And that was a struggle for me right away because I had always known them by an official name and they had changed their name and I now had to refer to she as a he. Right. And so in my head, I had known them as this cute little bouncing blonde girl that I never, and I fully supported the transition. But when sometimes it would come out of my mouth, I'd be like, well, and then I'm like, wait, hold on. Right. And you have to train your brain to do things differently. So I think, if you could explain to us a little bit about that culture, because I know when you first started getting into the culture, it was kind of a struggle too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was definitely a culture shock for me because when I say I was in the closet, I mean, I was in the closet. I wasn't allowing just put it this way. I wasn't allowing myself to be gay. No way.
Right.
So even, we're all adults here. So, I mean, even sexually and whatnot, I wasn't even allowing myself, fantasies or, sex play, anything. None of that. Nothing. It was like it's kind of like Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno. We
don't talk about Fight Club.
Fight Club. There we go. Yeah. So it wasn't that it wasn't that the John was fake. It wasn't that, and for starters, number one, nobody speaks for everybody. Everybody has their own experiences. I only speak for me. So I certainly don't represent or speak for all trans people. This is just take from my story whatever you like, want, whatever. But this has just been my experience. So number one, I refer to things in this way. I don't have dissociative identity disorder. I have BPD, which is issues with my emotional regulation. It has nothing to do with my grip on sanity. I am
absolutely.
Matter of fact, my issue is that I'm terribly lucid. Yeah.
No.
My problem is not that I'm insane. It's that I'm like a bit too fucking like sane and too focused and shit. So it's not that I'm detached from reality when I say Alexus and John or whatever. It's just that it's the easiest way to kind of explain the concepts in passing conversation like this to like help cover the most ground at once. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, well, do you have two different personalities? Like, no, I'm very aware of who is what. And, it's not that I change into somebody else completely different and my memory lapses and I sleepwalk and I crawl along the walls. No, nothing like that. I just refer to them in two different personalities in this way because it's the easiest way to help everybody else understand, like, okay, so we're talking about maleness in my life and then femaleness over here, because that's really the easiest way to sum it up. Is like being bigender is it's like, okay, I'm bigender and that's different than other trans people who, are born male who want to be female, so I'm a different I don't want to use the word thing, but I'm trying to be quick and succinct and quick as we go about this. But so the easiest way I can sum it up, at least for myself, is that it's like I have always felt like a woman in a man's body. I just don't feel trapped.
Right.
And so that's just me. I'm only speaking for me. And so as it comes to my treatment and my dysphoria, because that's what we're treating. Being trans is not a mental disorder.
No.
Transness is not the disorder. The disorder is the dysphoria. So the dysphoria is the depression and all of the mental static and the redness, a lot of the awful, ugly shit I talk about in Shotgun Facelift lyrics that fans really like. Now, dysphoria is not the only thing, gender dysphoria is not the only thing that can lead to those intense and extreme psychological conditions and states. PTSD, that's where, this podcast is incredibly relevant to those things because PTSD of any kind produces similar psychological effects to like what we're talking about, the mental fog, the red noise, however you break it down.
Right.
But I had called it red noise for I don't know how fucking long, and I had told Becca this. I'll get to Becca here in a second. Point being is the transness is not the mental disorder. What we're actually treating is gender dysphoria. So basically it's like if you live your whole life believing like I'm a woman in a man's body, and everybody's like, no, you're a man. It's all a fucking lie. It's like you hear that once. It's like being flicked in the nose, right? It's like it's annoying. It sucks. You can deal with it for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but after about like a week, 2 weeks, 4 fucking weeks, like a month, 2 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you can't deal with it, and it starts to drive you fucking nuts. That's a way to illustrate the point. I'm being dramatic, but so the dysphoria is the buildup of just always never being allowed to be who you are. It's literally just that simple. So it's like, how do you treat gender dysphoria? Like, let people be who the fuck they are.
Why do other people? Why do you care?
Dude, yeah. And so the gender dysphoria really, it's a matter of scale and spectrum. So as it comes to transness, and this is how it was explained to me by my gender therapist that I was working with, is the transness is a matter of scale. So like, when treating the dysphoria, it's like, okay, so how far down the scale do you have to go for treatment? So I have come up to and approached chemical intervention, which would be the hormonal treatment
Sure.
of coming off of like my naturally produced androgens and testosterones and things like that and replacing it with estrogens and whatnot.
Can you give me some of that testosterone? Like, I could use some of that. Like,
Well, but see, like, and this is where it's like, I am simply one person in this, and this goes completely so many other, and by the way, while we're in this conversation, and I have to scream this from the rooftops to whoever is going to ever fucking hear this, us trans people are not the only people that receive gender affirmation, because that's what we call, so like, for instance, like, I love to get my nails done. Absolutely love them.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be one thing of gender affirmation. It's a feminine thing that I love. It tells me I'm a woman. You know what I mean? And it's just that simple. So in terms of affirming your gender, if that's enough for my brain, then like, great, you've been treated. You know what I mean? Now this goes way deep, and I can give the whole lecture if you guys are interested in it. But if we're trying to keep everything to like 45 minutes, point being is like with the, I'll keep this succinct, with the spectrum and the scale, basically meaning the things that I do, the way that I dress, my brain is we're approaching someplace pretty close to happy in my own self, where I'm happy with what I see, who I am, my body, the way that I present myself, the way that I dress, things like that. If I were to still deal with like, you know, the gender dysphoria never completely goes away. We are never totally perfect. We talked about that earlier. Like, you're never totally done. But like, if I were to wake up and go through a really bad bout again of like, I just don't feel like a woman, I don't feel affirmed, you know, well, then we need to start talking about maybe chemical intervention. Sure. Like how far would you? No, so far I personally have not needed chemical intervention, but that's just me specifically speaking personally. Past the chemical intervention, if you still felt, you know, like you're not affirmed in your gender with the chemical treatments and whatnot, then you could start to discuss top surgery, bottom surgery, replacements, things like that. And then my favorite ending to this story, and this was given to me by my therapist, where she does like a Q&A on YouTube, and her name is Dr. Z. And she does a Q&A on YouTube where she'll just literally like take questions from anybody, you know, any trans person. And she specifically, she specifically like works, she's a transgender therapist. So she's been doing this for like 20 some years. And so she takes questions, any questions, and then just answers them live on air. And some gal who was born male and had transitioned female had gone all the way through the spectrum and had gotten both top, bottom surgery, gender, you know, hormone replacements, all of that, and had written into Dr. Z. It was like, I love this new body. I love being a woman. You know, I'm still pretty upset about the shape of my butt. You know, what do you have for that? You know, what can I do with that? And don't beat me to the funny part. Don't beat me to the funny part. But yeah, so Dr. Z reads this on air, and she's like, okay, so I'm so happy you had your surgeries. You know, you're here. I'm so happy for you, girly. You're here. You're one. Now you don't like the shape of your butt. Congratulations, you're a woman, because lots of women don't like the shape of their butt.
The circle is complete.
yes, this is finally like where we're at.
That was so cute.
That is good. That comes full circle.
I was like, lots of women hate the shape of their fucking butts. Why do you think they're all in the gym? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I do have to say to my wife, who will listen to this, is Alexa's nails are spot on.
Oh yeah, they're beautiful.
Thank you very much.
That.
Thank you very much. I have to give a shout out to Tina's in Grand Forks. That's actually right where I get them done.
Ew, yeah.
I
do have one other question.
Oh, sure.
So I'm curious because, you know, obviously I support the whole thing, but with some listeners who might be skeptical, what determines, like, I know it fills your cup to get your nails done, right? Sure. But the argument could be stated that I
have other things too.
Oh yeah, no, there's lots of things. But let's just use that as an example, right? So there's a lot of men out there that don't feel feminine that love to get their nails done.
Right.
You know, my husband loves pedicures where I hate them.
Right.
You know, but there's that weird fine line, and I think what you were trying to say, what differentiates it is that you feel more feminine in your body, and it does a checklist for you that makes you feel more like a woman.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important takeaway is that, you know, with dressing and dressing up, things like that, makeup, skincare routines, just getting in touch with more of that femininity, I think is like where you were thinking like that's going to hit that dopamine spot in your brain that says, this is what I needed.
Right. And it's literally just telling yourself, yes. And so what I had done, and this is literally the linchpin that'll like answer all the questions and make everything make sense, was like I had been in the closet, like I said, my entire life. And I came out at, I don't remember the exact date. It was a year, and not this year, but 2 years ago or whatever. But so I was 34, so 34 years in the closet. And I specifically tell people, there was a point in my life, and there's reasons for this, that are like for a different day. But I specifically taught myself how to walk different, how to talk different, how to be different, how to like strangle my emotions, how to do all of those things, like how to teach myself how to be a different person, not a fake person, not somebody that I was not, but just a piece of myself that was strong enough to like live, because the way that I grew up, like I said, just to be succinct, it was no bargain. So I was on my own. I was abandoned. I dealt with, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, very poor, very destitute. So that being the case, it also stems from like the place that I grew up was very conservative, very rural, very regional. And so homosexuality, anything LGBTQ, I mean, everybody kind of, I won't say everybody knows this story because it feels like it discounts it and it feels like it does it a disservice. But point being is like, I feel like I'm painting a picture that everybody can kind of like understand
Right.
of like what I'm getting at. So it was not safe for me to like, be out. It was safe for me to be artistic if it was like cool artistic, you know what I mean? So like if you could be badass about it, then like, it was cool. So like instead of like singing opera, like I've always loved opera, I've always loved ballet, I've always also loved spaghetti westerns, I've always also loved metal, I've always also loved horror, I've always also loved romantic comedies, so but romantic comedies and ballet and opera, that stuff gets shit on, right? You know what I mean? And that's not cool.
That does not make you less of a man. My husband loves opera and loves all the...
I know that now. I know.
All of you men out there, you're fine if you love all these things.
Right, yes. And that's the happy ending that we're absolutely coming to. That's the happy ending that we're absolutely coming to, okay? Yes. But like where I grew up was very much just like, no, I won't use coarse language, but that's,
you weren't accepted in that, right?
Insert slurs, right? So like you were this or that or whatever. So it was just like, oh, okay, well, I found a way to like still artistically express things that I was very much into, but it was like only this vein. And Facelift was like the culmination of all of my masculinity, because that's what it ended up being. Was like when I was very, very heavy when I was younger. And my first like coming out, because when trans people haven't come out yet, a lot of times in the vernacular, they're called eggs. Okay. Is one of the things which is actually kind of cute.
I did not know that.
I did not know that.
No.
I think it's kind of cute. Like they're called eggs. And
ready to hatch?
Yep. Ready to hatch into who they really are. And so, being by gender, when I had lost the weight and I like went down this rabbit hole of my own masculinity, because it was like pushing my body into what my body was capable of physically, because I had been overweight for so long that it was like, I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know how many push-ups I could do. I didn't know how much I could lift. I didn't know what I could do. And so I went down this rabbit hole of masculinity, and that culminated in like the horror books and Facelift and everything else. So like, this is what happened in my life anyway. It takes ego to make things like that happen. And it swallowed me up as much as I would allow it to. And I tried to keep it hidden as well as I could, but it destroyed my marriage in a lot of different ways. And it was either literally come out or lose Becca. And Becca gave me the same ultimatum when it came to my drinking. if that gives any. Yep. Okay, like.
And I think there's a lot of marriages out there that have gone through that.
Yeah, it was like she gave me that ultimatum of like, yo, quit drinking or we're done. And I did quit drinking and I got sober. This was before I came out and I got sober. What I had done was so bad. And it was not infidelity. What I had done was so bad and just mean. And it wasn't physical abuse. It wasn't any of that shit. It was just so, okay, she had gotten a raise and like, I was so in myself, and so like with tour commitments and band dates and merch designs, and then this one says this and this one says that, and I need to get a confirmation from this one, and I don't know where this one's supposed to be. And Becca got a raise, right, at this new job that she's got, which is fantastic. Who wouldn't be happy for their spouse in such a moment? I not only couldn't be bothered with it, but like I was like pissed about it, right? Because she went to salary, right? Why would you go to salary? Like, oh my God, like that matters in the moment, you know? And I threw such I'm serious. It's awful. And it's a great story now because it has a happy ending because Becca and I are still together. And she's still like, we'll put it this way, like John meant what he said on his wedding day. And there's like, you know, John is like, no, I don't need other women. I'm with Becca. That's who I'm with, you know? So point being is like, my marriage with Becca is solid. But what this led to the coming out was it led to such a bad fight, you know, where I couldn't just be happy for her. And it was literally just like there was no goodness left in me. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay letting that sentence just hang because it's just the truth of what happened. Because it was like... I feel like John gets a really bad rap on a lot of this stuff, but look, man, without that dude, I wouldn't be alive. So, but you get so used to just surviving, you don't live anymore. And everything had just slowly gone dark. And I didn't even really realize it because it was just this, like this constant thing of just, I don't know. It was like it was just facelift and it was just the masculinity, but it was like, dude, I'm gonna be out of stuff to say here if this is all I can say. I'm running out of moves. I can't just be this person, this bullheaded, egotistical, fucking testosterone-driven, fucking warlord, bearded, fucking Viking. Do this, you know? Somebody's gonna outbench press me at some point. Somebody's gonna have a longer beard than me at some point. Somebody's gonna scream more than me and something like I can only be the biggest, toughest, round and round and round and round and round, and I can't breathe. And now my wife's gonna leave me because I can't come out of my goddamn stupid band's tour dates about all this stupid shit we can't settle on like a bunch of grown ass fucking men, and I don't know what's going on. And my wife has got this new job, and I'm rambling for dramatic effect here, but
right.
But you kind of start to see the picture, and it was like I had licked every addiction that I had. I had heroin, I kicked it. I had booze, I kicked it. I even had sex addiction, I kicked it. I dealt with bulimia, I dealt with anorexia, I dealt with my weight, I dealt with all that shit. And my in-laws fucking hate me. Becca and I have been alone since we've got married. And we did all that on our own. And it was like I stood up to all of that shit. And I had facelifts, and it was working. And I never thought it would. I never thought any of my stuff would ever work. And it was working. And there was reasons why it was going to hit the ceiling, and I knew it was going to, right? And it was like there was issues in the band, and it was like, I'm going to be really vague in general, just, I think everybody understands why, but it's just like there was things that had to happen, and unless people would agree to them, they wouldn't work, and the band would falter. And it was easy stuff, not hard.
It's usually the way it is.
Just put it that way. Yeah. It was easy stuff, not hard, not expensive, not a big deal. And they just wouldn't do it. And I knew it was going to mean the end of Facelift, and I just couldn't face that. After everything that I had done, everything I had built,
So it was
My
hard for you to be
grand
happy
big
for her.
ego. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like precisely what it was. It wasn't just hard for me to be happy for her. It was impossible.
Because your life was in such shambles. Like, how dare you go
Oh God!
have something
It
good
was
happen to you?
precisely what it was. It was like, how fucking dare you get a raise and fucking like have this work for you while my life is in ruins, and mine wasn't in ruins. But you don't even see that. Like I said, where I had said at the beginning, you don't see these things unless you get distance on it. Looking back on it now, it's just like, dude, I'm a fucking monster. And it was only because I had been pushing that one side of my brain to actually have expression. Because when you literally are just going to go around and around in a circle, and if anybody knows anything about physics and black holes and singularity, like you just literally spiral and go around and around and around and around and around until one thing can only be something until it has to become something else.
Yep.
So it's like you can literally only be so much masculine John before it has to be dead or something else.
Right.
You know, and so it's like, what's more masculine than losing your wife because you're dealing with some shit in your band, man?
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
You know, and well, you know what I told her? I'm being silly here, but you know, I know what I told that bitch. I told her, man, I had the music before you. I'll have the music after you, and I'll, you know.
That doesn't work out so.
Oh
well.
God, dude, right? Okay, and I could not face the fact that I was that guy now. I was like, that's the next level, John. That's the great
This is intriguing.
ego. Like that,
intriguing to me.
I was like, that's the great ego. That's the next step. And Becca was finally done.
Yeah.
And it wasn't words. It wasn't. Becca and I have never had a fighty. We've always had a really great marriage. We've never fought at all, other than over usually shit that I've caused. But it was nothing she said. It was nothing that she did. It was like just knowing in that fight. It was like just knowing the silence that came with it. It was that silence. I was like, oh, fuck. If you're like me and you've destroyed things before, you know, destroyed relationships, things you love, stuff like that, you just know the silence that comes when you have irreversibly damaged something. And so it was that. I honestly don't remember what it was specifically that I had said, but I had said it, and it was a car ride. I had said it at the beginning of the drive, and we had to drive all the way down to Fargo. I said it. We went all the way down to Fargo and all the way back home, which is almost a 5-hour drive without one fucking word. And it was that night, we parked the car in the driveway. She just got out and just went in the house. And I was like, I sat there. It's funny now. Was not funny at the time. And I was like, she stayed through booze. She stayed through heroin. She stayed through facelifts. She stayed through everything. And this did it, dude. I hope you know that. I told that to myself. Like, I hope you know this.
So did you
This
have
is
the
done.
conversation with her after that?
And when I went in that night, I was like, and what had really been pushing me into this like huge conflict I was having with myself was like I was getting so close to the fact that I was either going to kill myself or come out of the closet.
Right.
Because that was the struggle I was having. And without giving the dirty details of like how I arrived at that.
Right.
I was at that point to where I was just like, if I don't come out, I'm going to kill myself. And so that's what I was dealing with. And I had now destroyed the last beacon that had always kept me tethered solidly, which was Becca. And she had not said anything, but she didn't have to. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Best silent treatment I've ever seen in my life. You know what I mean? And best silent treatment I've ever seen in my life. But I laugh now only because it's such a painful memory, because like when it's something hurts so much, you know, you approach lunacy with it, where you have to laugh about it because what else can you do?
Well, take notes. Women are really good at that.
Right? Yeah,
I'm aware.
Right. So it's like, what else do you do besides scream? You know, so it's like I laugh at these things, but I'm not making light of them. I swear to you. So it was that moment when it was like Becca, I knew was gone if I didn't fix it, and there was like, there's no way to fix it. It was that nasty, and it was, so it was like that night, I would just literally went up, I sat down in the bed, it was just in the total darkness, and I just told her, I was just like, look, I'll tell you what I'm going through, I'll tell you what the problem is. I'll tell you what's always been the problem. And I told Becca that night. I came out to her, and she knew about 2 weeks before my daughter did. And Becca was the only one that knew. I didn't tell the band yet. And so I told her, I was just like, I have that guy in me. That's not a lie. But the only way I would get to that guy is if I purposely pushed myself like that far by not ever expressing any other part of my personality. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, well, we've seen this through human psychology in a lot of different places too, like the Philip Zimbardo like prison experiments that he did, like the 69 Stanford prison experiments, where like he had prisoners and guards that he designated, and he had everybody live together, and he had people that he gave the part of guard, and then people that he gave the part of prisoner. And then, so the idea was basically like, how deep will people go into these parts of their personalities if just left alone? Mm-hmm. Like if you just leave the situation alone and just let them continue to act it out, like over the course of time, like people would say like, oh, I'd never be a really nasty prison guard. I never would. You know what I mean? Well, we have left for 3 weeks to your own devices, and how nasty will you divulge into that part of your personality? So it's a long way around the barn of saying that, like, I'm not blaming anybody else for this but myself. I had put myself in this prison of masculinity that, like, I could only act in certain ways. I could only walk certain ways. I could only talk certain ways. I could only, do certain things. And it was literally driving me fucking nuts.
Right.
So much to where I was not thinking clearly anymore. And I was mistreating the people that loved me the most. And it led me to the place where it was literally like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's like, I had joined this band called Shotgun Facelift.
Right.
Everybody's gone. I'm losing the band. And then the band is about suicide a lot of the time and PTSD. And I'm running out of stuff to write, man. And like when it really hit me, when I was like, okay, well, I'll save that one, because let's put it this way. Like, it was when I was writing lyrics and I was just like, shit got really fucking real for me, because it was just like, I don't know. I got hit with this thing that I was just like, it was like, how far was I going to go with this? Even with the confessing and all of that, like with the suicide, talking about suicidal ideation and putting it in music. And that's why I kind of get a little uncomfortable sometimes, like even with the artistry that I do, which is why I've been so big on like moving forward with like the trigger warnings that I do, because it's like, I don't know how healthy it is to like how far we should push all of this. Specifically with suicide and PTSD stuff, it's like how much can you write about suicide before there's nowhere else to go with it? I hate to say that, and I hate to be the person to have mentioned that or to have that thought, but I think what I'm trying to say is that I think what I'm trying to say is like, I feel like if you sing about suicide to a certain degree so much, I feel like it risks becoming exploitative.
Right.
And I feel like it risks becoming gratuitous, to where it's like people that are really messed up and are really suicidal, usually they don't talk about it a whole lot. They do it.
They listen to your music to understand it.
Yeah,
well, they relate to it, but you don't want to normalize it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this is the through line of why I mentioned this. I'm happy that, okay, I was getting really uncomfortable there for a second. I realize now why I brought this up. What I'm saying is like, I was becoming very uncomfortable with the questions my brain was asking me at the time, because I was pushing my brain into these places of like really disconcerting questions. And even now looking back at it, I'm like, oh my God, that's so fucked up. Like, and the only way I would have wound up there is if I had just been in this circular prison of never letting myself be who I am ever, So even to the point of like, this is a really embarrassing confession, but it's true. But it's just like, I had never even like kissed a man, like not even once. So like, think about that. So, like, have you gone your whole life like with who you were attracted, like if you're straight, gay, whatever, like going your whole life, like I have a daughter, obviously, yes, okay. So I've had sex, but it's like, but to never be actually touched as a person the way that you want or need,
Right.
you know? And so it had put me, I went nuts. That's the ending to the whole thing, right? Is I went nuts and I couldn't take it anymore. And I had ruined my whole life almost because of it. And so I came out. I came out to Becca. I came out to Aubrey. And then it wasn't long after that I came out to the band. And so I was in the band for about 2 years. And there was a whole bunch of shit that went down. And I left the band about 3 months ago. And after I did that, I looked back at my whole life. And then everything started to make sense. From my books, because I had a whole career before Facelift.
Right.
That I had almost forgotten about. And with all of this new influx of fans from Facelift, and from the Fargo scene in Grand Forks and the regional scene in Minnesota, like a lot of these places that we had toured, a lot of these new fans, they only know me from Facelift. So they're coming in now and they're like, oh my goodness, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, I've got stuff for you. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I get to write books again. I get to do my own things again. And finally I have a clear head because I was so burnt out and so off in Tinseltown almost. Like I was writing lyrics, from producers to Becca to people, even fans and everything, are like, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "I don't fucking know anymore." You know.
When I asked you to come here, you had told me, you're like, even before we started the podcast, you're like, I don't have a triumph story, and I'm going to stop you because
I am too. That's wrong.
You kicked the hardest habits that people, or addictions, like spirals through hell that anybody could possibly go through. So all of these things you kicked. You kept your family. You kept your wife.
I think they kept me.
Well, that is a true story. But at the same time, you are a triumph, Alexus. You are a triumph. And I know that you don't believe that, but I think you need to look deep down and you need to see that. You need to see that you have overcome so many things. And even in your brain, and your brain is telling you every single day, you know, I feel like a failure. I feel this. I feel all of these awful feelings. You're on the other side of having to write how awful you need to feel every day.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the things that is actually, like, when you say that, it's a big thing. That's like a huge part of the therapy working through, is like letting the bad days be over.
Right. Let it go.
Yeah, right. And this comes full circle too, like what you were talking about before. Like you were worried that, like, if I'm not loaded, I don't know if I can write. It's like, let the bad days be over with.
Write some good stuff.
Yeah.
Like happy things.
Or keep revisiting it if you want. But like, from a distance though.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You can write about it now from the clarity of sobriety.
Right.
That was one of the things that I've noticed. Is like, there's a different lens of voice, specifically lyrically, I think, that comes on with like perspective of distance. So like the clever, what I'm trying to say is like writing about being drunkenness from the lens of sobriety, I think is a really like particularly interesting lens that I've been like really interested in lately. So it's a long way around the barn of basically saying is that it's just like, I do hear what you're saying, because one of the other big things about coming out was like, man, was that a fucking whirlwind? Because there's been people that have been great. There's been some people that have been shit. I've lost family members. I've lost friends, friend circles,
That's on them.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's hurtful, but it's on them.
Yeah. And
You'll find your own circle.
And that's happening quite a bit quickly. And one of the biggest things that I've also like I was trying to find things to be happy about coming onto this podcast, because things that I really get nervous about or anxious about, I'm like, okay, make a checklist of things to enjoy while you're there.
Right.
And make the most out of your time, because then no matter what happens, at least you enjoyed it. And so I was like, okay, there's a few things about like, some things with mental health that I would like to pass on in like an appropriate context. And this is one of them, is that it's like, I think that, we even get addicted to the bad times, I think. At least I did. You know,
Well, that's easy to do because you know what to expect.
yeah. That's so fucking true.
Isn't it?
That's so fucking true.
You set yourself up for failure because you're like, I'm just going to expect the bad.
Yeah, yep. And I'd always said that. I was like, plan for the worst, hope for the best. I didn't say expect the worst because then you're giving the game away, right? Then people are like, oh no, then you're being too negative.
Yeah.
Then you're being too negative. But it's like, no, I had said, plan for the worst, hope for the best was always what my mantra was. And it's like, that's okay, but it's like the BPD way of like sneaking in doubt. You know, it's like I gotta say it the right way so that way people will let me have it. So that way it's not, you know, giving away myself.
It's okay to think that way if you're driving down black ice roads. Like, oh, you got planned for the worst. And if I make
around
it,
here,
that's
that's
great.
so easy. Yeah.
It's like I'm probably going in the ditch. If I make it, that's a bonus.
You're driving down black ice road. But that's a really good like segue of like, I had not realized that like my whole life was set up in like this survival type of situation to where it was like everything was life and death. Everything was like, you know, whether or not I would survive. It wasn't whether or not to enjoy it. Like I said, I had lived so long of surviving rather than living. And it wasn't since leaving Facelift that like I didn't even like see my own career. I made a post about that to where it was like looking back at my own books and rereading them. I'm like, so much of that stuff that I came up with, you know, even weird monsters or whatever that I came up with, I didn't even fully understand them at the time. You know what I mean? It was just stuff that I was like, oh, cool. That's crazy. That's fucking wild. That's an awesome scene. I don't know how I came up with it. Looking back, it's like, oh, I get it now.
It's enlightening, isn't it? It's like,
That's good.
One thing I wanted to touch on is I don't find it hilarious, but I find it amazing because I hear it all the time. There's usually one thing that really sticks out in a person's life when they're going through a journey like yours, Abby, like mine, is there's a battle with spouses, and it's usually over something the most ridiculous thing.
Dude.
Mine was over a Monster energy drink because she didn't like it, and I was pissed for a week. I was pissed off for a week.
Pissed off for a week.
And how stupid is that?
Right, yeah. and then like, it's funny now.
It's funny now.
It wasn't funny at the time.
But if you public speak, if you talk about that and why we podcast, you're like, yeah, we've had that too. And
Yeah,
people
right,
will nod
yeah.
their head.
Well, and so like, but like looking back on it now, it's like just seeing. It's like I had gone nuts. I had gone mad, really, because and it was that realization that in that moment, it wasn't just like where Abby would say like, well, you couldn't be happy for it. It's like, oh, it was worse than that. It was like I had sat with it that whole drive, telling myself, I'm like, dude, knock it off. Just fucking apologize. Like you love this girl. You know, you meant what you said on your wedding date. Still do. Always have. Like I said, John was never a lie. You know,
Right.
and I'll close with all of that. You know, about the duality of all of it. But like during that drive, I remember telling myself, I'm like, just like, dude, fucking apologize. You know what to say. You can solve this in 5 minutes if you want to. And I just wouldn't. And I didn't know why. And it.
Did you love that anger a little bit?
Oh, dude, yeah. And it was just like, because it works.
Because it's familiar.
And it's familiar and it works. And even if everything else leaves, at least you've got that.
Did she ever tell you, don't treat me like a bandmate, treat me like your wife?
She'd also told me, you're not my dad. You know
Right.
what I mean? I'm your wife, not your daughter.
Love
You know what I mean?
You know, Becca, if you listen to this, mucho credit to you, girl.
Oh, she will listen to
Good,
this.
because you know
She's
what?
excited. She did my makeup before I left.
I love that.
That's
Because
perfect.
it's not only one person. It's you know, it
Oh,
involves the
I
family.
wouldn't have anything without Becca. Like Becca, when I go around to conventions and stuff, like Becca doesn't just do like my money stuff. Like she handles my logistics and handles a lot of like my scheduling and things like that. So I can actually focus on fans that come up to the table instead of having to worry about like permits and payments.
Wouldn't that have been great when you were with the band?
Oh God, dude.
Instead of you doing it.
I had roped her in as much as I could too, but it was like at some level though. It's like I did a lot of it, and I tried to keep her out of as much of it as I could. But she ran a lot of merch, but that was about it. I didn't really wrangle her in as much as as much as she is for like Skeleton Rose, like she's involved in Skeleton Rose to where like we're trying to make that like our retirement. Like Aubrey graduates, I will be 39. I won't be 40 yet. And so the idea is like Aubrey will graduate and she wants to actually go to New York and study music. And so we're like, well, cool, man. Well, why don't we just fucking hit the tour, the convention circuit and just do no fixed address type of thing.
That'd be cool.
And just go, because she works from home. She works for an import-export border kind of, so she does a bunch of paperwork for like stuff going into and out of Canada. Anything Mexico, U.S., Canada. She works for ANA. So like railroad, ship, trucking, anything like that. She's doing really, really well with it. And so she works from home, so she could just literally take the laptop anywhere. So that's kind of what we're talking about. So like when it comes to Skeleton Arts Media, it's like she's involved and does a lot of artwork as well. So she's done actual artwork that's in my books and whatnot. Cool. And so like she's involved like to Skeleton Arts Media to that degree. When it comes to facelifts, it's like, oh yeah, dude, it would have been great to have that kind of help in facelift. Maybe the other two people that kind of also owned the name, the people that wanted to also help and be a part of it.
Well, Alexus,
anyway,
we have to wrap up, but I want to thank you for being here today and for telling us your story.
This is a blast. This is fun.
And your triumph and everything that you have gone through. We want to make sure that everyone adds Kiss My Chaos on our Facebook. We will post links to all of what you're doing, Skeleton Rose Media, and to the albums and things. So I'll have him or her send me all the things on that so I can post it and have it listed for everybody. But I hope everyone that's listened today can take something away from this, whether it's if you are not feeling yourself, if you are not feeling safe in your body, please reach out and do something about it.
I got one thing.
Yes.
I get to do that this time. You got to do it last time.
Oh, okay.
All right. For everybody listening out there, we get to put you on the spot. It's don't get nervous. Don't get anxious.
Sure.
One piece of advice to give to anybody. Any piece of advice. Maybe someone younger.
Someone younger. Piece of advice. Believe in rock and roll because it's the only religion that'll never let you down.
There you go.
I love that. That's a great way to end it. Yes.
From the late, great Lemmy Kilmister.
I love that.
Right. That's right.
Or from Lemmy Kilmister, manners are free. Use them.
Use them for sure. And play the slots.
Yeah.
Play the slots. Absolutely. Yes, play the slots.
Oh, man, what a great day.
Thank you.
All right. We out. You've been listening to the Kiss My Chaos podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we speak with some of the most intriguing people about their journey from trauma to triumph. If you find yourself in mental crisis, please seek professional medical help immediately.